Welcome back, everybody, to Future in Sight. Today, we got a really fun video. We have a really special guest with us. Every guest is special, but today's is especially because if you know him, and if you don't, you should. Welcome, Anthony. How you doing today?
I am doing great. Thank you so much for a beautiful opening.
Of course.
Feels special.
You are, yeah, definitely. Well, for those who may not have already spoken with you around the office, why don't you just give a quick introduction to who you are, how long you've been at RxSight, and what you do.
Okay. My name is Anthony Mladosich. I've been with the company for close to 15 years now in May.
Amazing.
Worked many roles up until now, but I'm currently director of LAO manufacturing.
Awesome. And that's ultimately why we wanted to speak with you. 15 years, you have an amazing growth story and career trajectory. You touched on it a little bit there, but why don't you tell us a little bit more about the various roles that you've had? Because I understand you started in quality as a QA associate. Is that right?
I did. I actually signed on as maybe like a document controller for the company very early on when they had downsized and they were hiring back up again. I happened to be one of, I think it was maybe 8 employees at the time when I got hired on. And so I started in quality doing document control. From there, I quickly became office manager. I started doing shipping and receiving. I started doing inventory counts. And then, of course, I was in quality and started dealing with kind of quality system management and the expansion of that as the company continued to grow.
Amazing. So right now we sit at just shy of 500 employees. Right. 15 years ago when you joined, how large was the company?
Yeah, I think it was about 8 employees. I think I was the 9th one to get hired on.
That's great.
At that time, at least.
Yeah. So 15 years, I mean, the obvious question that comes to mind is what's made you stay?
So much. This company has really kind of challenged me for the better. Right, put me in positions that I never thought I'd be in. Ultimately, right, signing on as a document controller, I never thought I'd end up being director of manufacturing. Right, I've been afforded a lot of opportunities for growth, and that continues to inspire me. Right, and challenge me for the better, challenge me to grow as a person, as a leader. Right, and ultimately has given me so much more than I could have ever imagined at the time that I got hired on.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I mean, you don't hear stories like this as often anymore. They still exist, no doubt. But I mean, 15 years with the same company and that type of growth is just really exciting to see. So when you were making that switch, maybe if we go back to even before you joined RxSight, maybe you just signed your offer letter or maybe it was a verbal acceptance at the time, but did you think that this would be a career move for you or did you see it more as a job?
Yeah, it's a funny story. Before I came here, I kind of walked away from a company where things weren't going as positively as they should have. But I basically kind of put it out into the universe. I need to find somewhere to go that I can actually grow. First company that I applied for, first only interview I ever did. And then I got offered the role and I just thought this company had so much potential, right? In terms of what they had explained to me at the time. We were a few months away from starting our clinical studies, the FDA trial. And so the potential for the company's growth was one thing that super attracted to me to it, right?
Yeah.
I thought, okay, there's definitely a future here. And I was actually looking for something stable. I was trying to establish myself. I was a little bit under 30 years old at the time. And so I was making out a life, right, with a partner and whatnot. And so I wanted to make sure I had that stability. So this company seemed to offer that for me. So I joined.
That's great. I mean, it's interesting because you said when you joined, it was about 8 employees, yet you were looking for stability. So walk me through what that means.
Well, they explained to me that they were growing, right? And the potential for the product, right? And then when I investigated it, it turned out to be true, right? Ultimately, once I joined the company and I found out, how great our clinical results are and the potential for the product itself and the team that I was working with, at least at the time, right? I was pretty much convinced that this was something that was going to explode eventually and that I needed to be around for it.
Sure. And 15 years later, here we are.
And
starting to
right.
explode. Yeah, you were right. It was a good bet. If you're not a betting man, you maybe should be.
Well,
awesome. So yeah, roles of QA associate, QA manager, production manager, associate director of LAO manufacturing, and now director of LAO manufacturing. So there's been a lot of changes and evolutions in those 15 years. When you look back through all of that, when you hear it, was there a specific moment that maybe felt like, oh man, this is bigger than anything that I anticipated or something that made you uneasy in the best way possible?
Absolutely. I mean, probably every promotion I felt that way, right?
Yeah.
But I think there's something to that, right? Is you're never fully prepared for the next role, right? And now I completely understand that. In fact, one thing that RxSight has taught me is that I don't have to have it all figured out. I'm going to figure it out as I go, right? I don't think that's something that most people admit to,
Sure.
right? But I think it's important to acknowledge it in terms of your own personal growth and allowing yourself to kind of go to the next level of who you are, right? And so, yeah, I definitely had a lot of those challenging moments. I would say kind of the biggest challenge was stepping into operations, right? So I worked my way to quality assurance manager, and that was comfortable for me because I'd spent my entire career up until that point in quality. But operations was something that I didn't have any experience in, right? And this was at a point in time where the production manager at the time fell ill and couldn't return to work. We were transitioning our manufacturing facility from Pasadena to Aliso Viejo, right? And so everything was new and nothing was established, right? And so, and it literally happened like the week that we were moving, where Pat Cullen at the time and our VP of operations asked me to step in because I happened to be the one closest to that person's role, but I had not made any plans with them. You know, I wasn't in on everything that was planned for the clean room and whatnot. So I had to learn all of that fairly quickly. Literally, as they're moving in flow hoods, I had to figure out where we're going to put pipelines in for nitrogen and where the flow hoods were going to go and determine a flow. So it was a quite challenging time for me as a employee and as a person, right? Because there was a lot going on in terms of my career, but I was also dealing with the fact that a friend of mine who was the person that was in that role fell ill and ultimately wasn't able to come back to work because their illness got worse over time and ended up passing away. So I ended up, by chance, right, kind of filling the role, thinking that my friend would come back to work and then didn't, right? And then I was stuck with all the responsibility as well. But it ended up being a blessing for me, really.
That's amazing. Yeah, and I mean, I joined in 2023. We were in Aliso Viejo. I know we've been in Aliso Viejo for some time. So, I mean, a lot of people at the company now may not realize we haven't always been in Aliso Viejo. So walk me through just kind of like that feeling of transitioning from one site to another to where we are now, home of Aliso Viejo, Orange County.
Oh, it's super inspiring. My God. We were a tiny little facility, right? In fact, we used to outsource our manufacturing to a company in Pomona. When we decided to bring it in-house, we built out a tiny clean room that was maybe the size of half of our main gowning room now, right? And that's where we hired a few people that are now infamous in our company, Gianni Velez being one of them, to kind of help reverse engineer how we produced our lens. And with that said, you know, it took us months to even get lens made, much less yielded, right? Because there were still issues with it. With that said, it took a while for us to be able to even establish manufacturing. Once we decided that we were going to move to Aliso, open up a much larger facility, begin to expand the team, it was really exciting just to see the fact that we'd reached that level, right? Little did I know that within a few years, we would triple, quadruple and our size and our output, right? And so it's super inspiring to think back on that and what is possible within a very short amount of time.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. So think back to when you were kind of tapped on the shoulder to say, hey, we want you to do this, right? We want you to grow and step into this new role. Because I would imagine that around that time, or maybe throughout your most recent promotions, there have been other people who are doing similar type of things or operating at a similar level, right? What do you think maybe you were doing differently to make you have that type of visibility?
I think what made me a little bit different was that I wasn't afraid to be honest with management about the changes that needed to be made in order for us to continue to grow. I've always been opinionated, to say the least. And I was lucky enough to have the mentors that I have had, Ilya Goldschlager being one of them, who gave me opportunities and listened to me when I was saying, wait, this isn't working. We need this, or I need you to help me with this, right? And you know, people along the way, Pat Cullen, another one, who would sit down and listen to what I had to say and understood that my intentions were for us to progress further, right? And to try to build teams around the process that we ultimately ended up needing to try to determine how to improve yields or to scale up production. And so I think because I was quite vocal about what needed to happen, I think that it helped influence kind of the direction that things were going and the support that I ultimately needed to succeed.
Yeah. Where do you think that comes from, that confidence to speak out? Because it can be uncomfortable for those who are either earlier in their careers or newer to people leadership to push back on management and say, there's a better way to do this, and this is why I think
Well, I
that
don't know
is.
that I told them it was a better way to do it, but I just
A more
helped
efficient
influence.
way to do it.
I think it comes from my parenting, honestly. I think my mother really instilled that in me, right? She's a very outspoken person. When I was a child, she used to take me out with her on protests and whatnot.
Great.
But it was always kind of with the greater good in mind, right?
Mhm.
And so we would go out and protest for those that needed the support. And so she always kind of taught me that my voice carries power and that I should speak up when I have to, right? In order to make things, circumstances better for people.
Mhm.
And so ultimately, I think it was just an extension of that, to
Yeah.
be honest. Also, the fact that we have the kind of management team that was willing to listen.
Yeah.
Right. I think that goes a long way.
Yeah. I think that still is true today. I mean, we're constantly looking for maybe not better, but more efficient ways to do things, right? And, continuous improvement seems to be, at least from my perspective, one thing that we really value is, how can we work smarter and work more efficient and streamline and optimize. So it seems like that has been in the DNA of the company from kind of the early days. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So you've been at the director level now, director of LAL manufacturing for, I think what now, almost 5 years. Is that right? Leading that group?
Close to, yeah.
Okay. So when you stepped into that role, right, what has been different from how you envisioned a director level type of position? Is there anything that surprised you?
What surprised me is that I'm still doing work of a manager, sometimes of a supervisor. So, like, it's almost like you never really leave those roles. You're
Yeah.
just kind of growing. You're expanding on your area of responsibility, your scope of responsibility. What I really like about the role of being a director is that I get to kind of influence grander scale decisions, right? The direction of the department, the direction of what we're doing to support one another, influencing other people's careers, right? Kind of pulling people up along with me. When I notice talent, I speak up about it, right? Hey, let's pay attention to this person. Why don't we give them this responsibility? And I'd like to think I've helped a lot of people kind of challenge themselves and grow into their own positions, right? So I think the most surprising thing is that you never really let go of your previous responsibilities,
Right.
mainly because of, I think, my sense of duty towards every level of our organization, right? And because I've already experienced it at those levels, I want to kind of ensure that I'm doing what I can to support those systems. But the most enjoyable part is having that influence to support other people.
Yeah, amazing. So I know, in my line of work and interviewing candidates, growth comes up a lot, which is why you and I are speaking today to show what growth can actually look like. But oftentimes I've found people, often focus on what they should be doing to grow. I'm curious though, is there anything that you had to teach yourself not to do, or you had to learn
Yes.
an area to hold back on in order to grow?
You know what it really is to not put myself in a mindset that I'm not prepared to take on a responsibility. I think I have this conversation a lot with the people that I've hired to help manage the team. You have to meet people at their mindset, right? If I'm asking you to do something and your mindset is that you can't do it, that you don't have the knowledge, the skills, the experience to do it, you're going to talk yourself out of doing it. And
Yeah.
so I think I learned along the way, because I was put in so many awkward positions, right?
Yeah.
Go learn to count inventory, go learn to do shipping and receiving, right? Learn about VAT taxes, whatever. I challenged myself to just understand, right? What next bit of information do I need to take the next step? And it was never comfortable, right? And that's another thing is you can't be kind of comfortable in your position. If you're not uncomfortable in learning the next step, then you're not progressing, is my kind of state of mind about that. But that goes back to what I was saying before. It kind of depends on the state of mind of the individual, right? And if you can influence that for the better, then it'll help them that much more. And so I just had to talk myself out of setting myself back by putting myself in the wrong mindset.
Yeah, amazing. Well, wonderful. Well, you've had quite the career with RxSight, and I'm sure it'll continue. When you look back, any reflections, any special anecdotes that maybe you can leave the people with, whether it be current employees who are wanting to grow or those who are interested in pursuing a career at RxSight and want to grow with us? What would you leave them with?
Well, I'll leave you with an experience that I had that I think has spurred me on this entire time and continues to inspire me. I was fortunate enough to spend some time in one of our physicians' offices while they were supporting us with a clinical trial. And I got to meet, an elderly woman who was just finishing her lock-in treatments and basically came out of that done with her process. And the physician explained to her, oh, these are the people from back then's Calhoun Vision, but now RxSight. And she ran up to us and hugged us. It was two of us. And she explained that she was so grateful for what we do as a company because we were able to allow her to see her grandchildren for the first time.
That's amazing.
And so it still kind of makes me emotional to this day to think about that we're impacting people's lives for the better in that way, right? If it means that much to somebody that we're able to give them kind of sight of their grandchild for the first time, then I'm absolutely signing up for that, no matter how difficult this may be on a daily basis, right? And so that's really what I keep in mind is, one, start with heart, right? Anytime I have to make a decision, I think about that, okay, let me think about the individual, let me think about how this is going to affect them, and then ultimately make the right business decision with that in mind, and always inspired by that little lady and her grandchild.
That's awesome. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for sharing your perspective and telling us more. I mean, for those who are, watching, you know where to find Anthony. Please talk to him. I mean, he's amazing to work with and work alongside, and I'm sure work for. So thank you again for sharing your journey with us.
Of course. Happy to do it.
Awesome. Well, keep tuning in. We're going to be doing more like this, as you know, and we'll see you on the next one.